foremost, my trustee, first, where is she? Pohai, Ryan back there as my trustee aide, and secretary is Summer Soares. Thank you so much, ladies. At this time, I'd like to call upon Pohai to call upon our attendance this morning.
Trustee Ahuna is excused. Trustee Akaka.
Ill.
Trustee Akina.
Aloha mai kākou.
Trustee Galuteria.
Yo.
Trustee Kahele. Trustee Lindsay. Trustee Souza. Vice Chair Wahe'e.
They're coming.
Chair Alapa.
Present.
Trustee Kahele.
I see them coming. There he is.
Oh,
There they are. We're just doing roll call.
Trustee Kahele. Trustee Souza.
Yo.
Trustee Wahe'e. Trustee Lindsay. You have quorum.
Mahalo Pohai. At this time, I'd like to read the following to you folks. First one to our Article 12 of our bylaws, the most recent edition of Robert Rules of Order, and specifically Section 49-21 for small boards. The following rules apply. Members may remain seated while making motions or speaking. Number 2, motions need not be seconded. Number 3, informal discussion is allowed while no motion is pending. And number 4, the chair may speak and debate and vote on all questions. We also ask that everyone follow Article 17 regarding order and decorum, address the chair, remain respectful, and avoid interrupting speakers. Public testimony will be called on each agenda item and limited to 5 minutes per speaker. A 30-second warning will be provided as time runs out. Joining the trustees today is our kapohana, Stacey Ferreira. Stacey, would you like to introduce any of the administrative staff today?
Mahalo, Chair. Aloha kakahiaka kako, trustees. Today we have in person in the boardroom, we have our Investment Director and Interim CFO, Ryan Lee, General Counsel, Everett Ota, Senior Director of Strategy and Implementation, Elena Farden, Director of Education and Culture-Based Learning, Anuhea Awo-chan, Director of Economic and Business Resilience, Pony Askew, Director of Community Engagement, Lisa Von Sekona, Grants Manager, Kapua Bele, Director of Communications, Bill Brennan, Operations Manager, Royce Campbell, Senior IT Systems Engineer and Administrator, Kevin Chalk, IT Systems Engineer and Administrator, Kyle Saucier. Mahalo.
Mahalo kapohana. At this time, we're on entry number 2, new business, action item, BF 25-71, approval to activate external hiring services budget from fiscal year 2026 biennium budget to fill key ʻŌha positions. Do we have anyone sign up to speak on this item? Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call upon our kapohana to read the proposed action items. Go ahead.
Mahalo, Chair. I come before the board today asking for the approval of the use of budget line 249 for contract for hiring services within human resources budget for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $140,000 prior to the December 31st, 2025 date to supplement our ongoing recruiting efforts for the following ʻŌha key staff positions. 1, Chief Financial Officer, 2, Managing Director of Real Estate, Resource Management and Land Assets, and 3, any other key positions identified by myself based on operational necessity. So the administration, working very closely with our Director of Human Resources and their team, have just been pushing really hard to get these key executive positions filled, and we have found it to be extremely difficult. We've utilized various mechanisms. We've had the $5,000 signing bonus, the employee referral, LinkedIn. We've tried, various different ways to try to get a quality pool of candidates. And we find that we're still, although we're continuing to have interviews, we're not relenting on that. But again, we want to get the best executives for the agency, and we would like to utilize this resource sooner than later. Mahalo.
Wonderful. Trustees, any discussion on this action item? Oh, yes. Trustee recognizes Trustee Galuteria.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Stace, have we gone to Bishop Street and talked to any of the financial institutions for the CFO position in particular?
We have not gone to, if you're talking about like banking
Yeah.
and I did reach out to one individual that was previously at First Hawaiian Bank. Unfortunately, they weren't on the right side of the ledger. They were more on the spend and they were on the managing of the finances. What we have done, so the answer is no, but what we have done is going out to the different professional organizations that these individuals that you're speaking of would be a part of.
Yeah.
So we're trying to, again, cast the net as wide as possible. And Kalamai forgot to mention that the utilization of funds would be for professional headhunting agencies who, this is their job to go and look for,
Okay.
seek out individuals who would be qualified for these positions.
Yeah, so this is the eyes in the community that we want to hire.
Yes, yes. So they have these agencies, these professional hiring, headhunting agencies have these connections out in community.
Have we asked them to go into specific areas, like Native Hawaiian Chambers as an example?
We would scope that with with the headhunting agencies
Okay,
to, determine where we think the best. I mean, they have a very wide network as well, but certainly we would help to guide that scoping.
okay, thank you. Mahalo.
And I'm happy to get from trustees if there are places that you think specifically we should be adding to.
Okay.
To the list.
Hey, thanks.
Trustee Kahele.
Thanks, Chair. So just to, I guess, continue on Trustee Galateria's questioning, the resource would be used to supplement ongoing recruiting efforts. Would the resource also be used for the supplementing of our internal hiring processes? Or is it exclusively for third-party efforts to recruit?
Mahalo for the clarification. At this point in time, because we have already brought on extra personnel into our HR. So we have a temp staffer and we are expecting our new HR partner to start in the next few weeks. So that's 2 additional personnel that we have. So again, that has been helping us to, expedite, move things forward. This resource, Chair, is really to help us get those headhunting agencies contracted. And we haven't discussed if it's one or more. Every headhunting agency kind of has their specialties. So at this point, we think we're going to need that very precision type hiring assistance.
Have we found I know HR has a revised flow chart for hiring from the moment the position is vacant to when a position description is revised or modified by the individual PIA director working with HR to when the position is posted on HR's website. And as it goes through this, 60-day process, how is that been going in terms of vetting of applicants, getting prospective applicants to the interview stage and process to the point where a timely decision is made and they are onboarded when they begin? Are we staying within that 60-day window? Because I think part of the thought process behind this allocation of funds and the proviso language that it would be a 2-part opportunity to fix or to help augment the HR shop if in the event by the end of the year they weren't able to fill key positions. 1, due to trouble recruiting and that market, and 2, the backlog of the timely processing of prospective applicants and getting them into, to the point where they're being offered a position here at OHA and onboarded. So in terms of our current processes for the HR hiring process, how is that
Yeah.
progressing through the summer?
Yeah, mahalo for asking. So we are trying to stay within that 60-day period. And I think that that level of focus that we're putting and trying to get folks through that recruitment and hiring timeline is aggressive. However, it's not impossible. And again, it's an all hands on deck effort. And so every week, the ELT, we go over every single position line by line, and we basically are making sure that those positions are moving through that timeline in a fashion that is responsive and making sure that folks are being accountable to that 60 days. Now, that's not to say that other things aren't, other things get kind of thrown in because there's other work that's happening. But for the most part, we're trying to keep that 60-day process with fidelity. So again, with the addition of the two more personnel in HR, is going to be very helpful. And we are including our directors, so those who are typically not part of the review of application process, they are now to help relieve some of the reviewing of applications. We are including the directors in that process. So that's kind of freeing up some of the HR capacity to focus on other parts of the process. And so there's like an early recommendation when applications come in, like kind of creating a short list. So HR doesn't have to review out of 10, maybe they're only reviewing 5, which the director has kind of culled through and determined that these are the top 5 to review. So we're trying to do process improvements like that. But I think, again, just having it as a weekly touch point is also really critical in the work. And I think for this particular money that we're asking for it to be released is going to be just one more tool in the toolbox. And I know we've had conversations like we don't have to wait until December. I mean, if we feel like we want to pull the trigger to utilize that tool, then we should do so. So that's why I'm bringing that forward today. Oh, the other constraint that we had too within HR is that their current office space and the type of work that they do does kind of confine them to having a certain number of individuals in their office. So that has been something that Corey has been working out with Royce to try to accommodate more bodies. So if we bring on more people, we want to make sure that there's space, adequate space. And because of the sensitive nature of the information that they deal with, we want to make sure that that we can accommodate additional bodies. So we continue to have that conversation with Corey in our ELT. If we need to bring on additional bodies, Chair, we can certainly do that. So if we want to open that appropriation up to, again, giving more tools to Corey to bring on more staffing, if need be, we can do that.
I guess, if Corey and the HR team feel like they have it under control and that they're not inundated or overwhelmed with applications and they're able to vet these candidates in a timely manner, then I would be fine with that. Part of this conversation stemmed a few months ago from when the governor had issued an executive order called Operation Hire Hawaii that was looking at hiring many of the members of the federal workforce that were going to be displayed because of early retirements, buyouts, Doge. And so there was a big article, if anyone saw it on Sunday's Star Advertisers on the front page, and the headline was that 3% of just Operation Hire Hawaii had hired, I think, 142 people over the less than 6 months. And that represent about 3% total. So they're even having a hard time hiring as well. I think the article, noted that the 14-day application to offer was super ambitious and probably a little too aggressive. Commend our HR team from taking what was, I think, a 90-day process just a few months ago to a 60-day process. And so we want to make sure that they have the resources they need to do that. And I mean, I think, can't speak for all the trustees, but we have done a lot to get recruiting going. There's been a number of positions posted. We have the signing bonuses that we have as well. So, I mean, I personally myself know of people that have applied and are waiting for their applications to go through the process. And I've stayed out of that just for the purposes to not influence that process and let it go through the normal, wickets and let HR do its thing. But I think it is important, if we want to fill these positions, that we do everything we can to stay within that 6-day window. And if Corey and them have the resources to do it, and we can better allocate this funding to recruitment to a third party, contractor to fill some of these critical positions we can't fill, then I'll be all for that.
Mahalo, Chair, if I may, Chair. And so I want to call attention to the contract that we're trying to put into place with these funds. It's not that we haven't had applicants for both of these high priority positions, the managing director of real estate and CFO. We've had candidates. They're just not the candidates that we feel are the best fit and the caliber that we need to take OHA to that next level. But we're continuing to go through through the interview process, but we wanna raise the bar and try to get the best. And I think that this tool in our toolbox will help us do that. And so I really appreciate, again, the foresight, putting that money aside, because recruitment has been such a high priority. So again, mahalo for that. And yes, I will have a conversation with Corey. We did have one last week. Again, he's very happy with the personnel that we've brought on, who's helped to move things along. And again, we have an excellent employee who will be starting in a couple of weeks. And we know that employee is going to make a big difference in the team because of the expertise and the experience that individual is bringing. So we're very excited to have that addition to our team.
Can't wait to meet him or her. Sounds exciting. I'm going to move our OHA forward, obviously. Is there any more discussion? Yes, go ahead, Trustee Akaka.
Question. So, regarding the recruiting, is it included in part of the interview process in asking how in which the applicant has learned about the position that is open?
So if it comes through LinkedIn, we know that.
Okay.
We do not ask if it's coming in from our OHA.org. We don't ask that question. But we certainly could. We could.
Yeah. The reason why I'm asking that is I personally am interested, as Trustee Kahele was talking about, the various those that apply and how maybe they would learn of it. I'd be interested in knowing, as I recall when we would be presenting in the neighborhood board meetings and the various meetings that we have been doing and interactions with the community, it has been shared throughout in terms of the that we are hiring and of the signing bonus and so forth. So I'd be interested in knowing how one learns of the position that is open, so that I think we might see some we might be able to gather some data so that we know which are the best ways in which the communication is going out, whether it's our social media or word of mouth, or because we're sharing it in the meetings and so forth.
Mahalo, Trustee. I wrote that note down. We can certainly start adding that to our question set. One other thing, and I'll be sending out later on today a vacancy report update for the last 2 weeks. Again, just wanting to keep it front of mind for trustees. But I think it's commendable and important to note that not only are we talking about vacancies of around positions that have been open for a long period of time, but at 22%, that's where we're currently at. When I came on 2 years ago, it was much higher, almost 40, right? It was like really high. And so not only have we continue to bring down our vacancies. With natural attrition, when people retire, or if, they get separated or they resign, we have not increased numbers, right? We've been able to fill even those positions. So at 22% and decreasing, I think we're doing a really good job. And so just mahalo for the patience, the continued trust and belief that, we are trying to use all the tools in the toolbox. And again, mahalo to the trustees for putting in budget so that this is just one more effective tool for us to move forward. We're going to get there. And I know the goal is 15%, and we have our eye on that prize, and we talk about it weekly, and it's going to be doable. We're going to get it done.
Follow up to this as well, Mahalo. Another thing as well, when we're putting out digitally, that the positions are open, are we also sharing in terms of what our mission is? Just a quick statement on that. And I mention that because in hearing what you're saying, I think it's important to those that are seeing, if it is at all possible, those that are seeing that the position is open, that they know exactly why it would be important for them to apply if they are qualified and passionate about this work.
Thank you for that. And I'm also getting a note that says that there is a question on the application. So I'll talk to Corey about calling this information, but it does say, how did you hear about this position? Great. And it says either OHA website or other website source, newspaper, friend or relative, or an employment agency or other. So we can get that data out to you folks.
Trustee Galutaria? Any other questions? Sorry. Could I have a motion for this action item, please? Any further discussion, trustees? All right, call for the vote, please.
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Galutaria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele,
Aye.
Trustee Souza,
Aye.
Trustee Wahe'e,
Yes.
Chair Lapo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mahalo, everyone. At this time, I'd like to go on to our next item. It's a presentation by the administration. Do we have anyone signed up to speak for this, on this item? Not at this time. Okay, at this time, Chair recognizes Kapuhana, Stacy Ferreira, and I believe you have someone new to introduce
Yes,
us to.
mahalo. Yes, thank you, Chair. At this time, I'd like to invite our new COO, Keishan Kikina, to the table to introduce himself.
Hello, mai kako. O wau Keishan Kikina, no wailua mai au, no ho wau ma Kaneohe me ka'u wahine o Alyssa Kikina, me ka'u mau keiki. Mahalo nui ke hoki pana mai. Aloha nui trustees, my name is Keishan Kikina. I'm originally from Wailua. I live in Kaneohe with my wife and children now. Mahalo for this welcome. I'm excited to be a part of this work and stand alongside you guys in serving the Lahui. I see my kuleana and my kulana as being in service to the Lahui, as well as this board and the limahana of OHA. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here. Mahalo nui.
Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. You sure you can like work here? Okay, right. I just checking, just checking. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, Keishan. We are looking forward to working with you. I'm very excited to have you on board. At this time, I'd like to again have our couple Hana take over at this moment.
Mahalo, Chair. We are really excited to bring before the board updates and implementation plans for trustees' input and if you have any questions. So for our first presentation, we're going to have Kapua Bele, our grants manager. She's going to share about our proposed OHA-Administered Disaster Aid Program. Mahalo.
Good morning. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity today to present. We'll start with our disaster aid funding. Are the slides up? Okay.
Summer, could we get it? Thank you. Just tell her when you want to.
Yeah. The overview slide. Thank you. Okay. Mahalo. Okay. So I'll be sharing today how this program is designed to ensure that OHA can deliver direct financial aid to our beneficiaries when natural disasters strike. So the purpose of this funding is simple but powerful: to provide disaster aid directly without relying on third-party intermediaries. This approach ensures that assistance reflects Native Hawaiian values with outreach and intake processes that fit our beneficiaries and our communities, rather than applying a generic one-size-fits-all approach. OHA has learned a lot in preparing and delivering Kana'aho funds, and we will continue to build on that foundation. This program aligns with MIMO Strategy Health 3, supporting the health and well-being of Native Hawaiians by restoring housing, food security, and stability after disruptive events. And with partnership with the BOT, BSA grants, and financial services as our internal stakeholders, and of course our communities and beneficiaries as our external stakeholders. Next slide. So of course, our aid would be statewide, and the key phases would start with the disaster aid declaration. So of course, usually county, state, and federal authorities declare a disaster, but also our BOT is empowered to declare an event a disaster for our beneficiaries. Once that activation or declaration is made, internally, we'll initiate direct service disaster aid processes with our internal stakeholders. So once triggered, BSAs will take the lead in intake and applicant support, and we'll also look to them since they know their island communities best on the approach that we take in helping our beneficiaries. On the grant side, once we receive the applications, we make sure eligibility is there. A deeper dive into the approval process, and then communicating back out to the beneficiaries. We hand it over to finance, and they will handle the payments and ensure that all processes are being met with internal audits, and then continual feedback through our community engagement program back to the board. Next slide. So timeline and action plan. So in this first quarter, we met with grants, community engagement, and with financial services to revisit what was started with Data House for Kana'aho. We had a meeting with Data House. What they have put in place remains. So none of that at the front end would have to be rebuilt. We did ask them for a mapping and potential budget on what it would be to complete the back end. One of the things we feel would be most useful is if we can connect everything online, including with Oracle to help with the payments. Right now, with it being done manually, we can continue that process, but it would speed up payments, I think, to beneficiaries to have it on in our systems, right? So we are waiting for the budget proposal and the mapping from them, but for now, we are able to continue with our manual process. We've had several, I think, close calls with disasters this summer with fires. We had the fires in Maili, which did damage a beneficiary home. They lost everything, their home, their businesses. So being able to continue manually, we want to be able to help our beneficiaries. Maili fires, because they were so small, was not declared an official disaster. So that would be one event that the BOT would be empowered if we wanted to continue to help our beneficiaries to declare a disaster, and we would be able to help that family and you know, any other beneficiaries when things like this occur. Next slide. Potential barriers, really what we would like is guidance from the board on the process for a disaster declaration if it doesn't come from the county, state, or federal level. Knowing that, we'd be able to continue with our execution. One of the things that myself and Ilima have been in conversation about is putting together a clearer SOP for disaster aid funding coming into this new, because I wasn't part of the original ʻAha program. I think the two of us together would be able to put an SOP in place so that future disasters, you know, we can execute pretty quickly. Expected impact. When activated, this program ensures rapid, equitable, and culturally aligned aid distribution, but more importantly, it strengthens the resilience and well-being of our lōhui by providing stability in these moments of crisis. That's it.
Okay, mahalo. Any discussion, questions? Trustee Souza, please, go ahead.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. Aloha Shatel. In regards to the distribution of funds, are we handling internally? Are we looking for an external partner?
Right now, building upon Kana'oho, it would all be internal.
Beautiful. Right on. Great to hear. Thank you.
Trustee Aquino?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chantel. Just for clarification, when I first read this, I looked at the word phases of disaster aid activation. And the first one is official declaration by government. And the second phase would be board declaration. So you're not saying that an official declaration needs to take place first before OHA can declare a crisis for beneficiaries.
Thank you for the clarification. No, absolutely not. So these are just the types of declarations I think people are used to hearing it from the county, state, federal level. But I think it's important to remind people that our board is also empowered with those powers.
What would the criteria be for the board to declare something a disaster?
I think that would be a great discussion to have, and we can provide some guidelines to help the board with that discussion. And I think we want to keep in focus at all times when a disaster strikes, how it impacts our beneficiary communities explicitly.
And are you looking at any budget parameters as to what we would put aside to be able to tap into?
Right now for fiscal year 26, we do have 410,407, and then slightly more than that for fiscal year 27.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Kahele?
Thanks, Chair. Going back to maybe what Trustee Akina talked about and the declaration piece. So if part of the challenge, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the distribution of funds is the federal declaration, like Lahaina, is really important, because if you don't have that, there are tax implications for the recipient.
Correct.
You know, the state can declare, but it doesn't exempt you, or it may not blanket exempt you from the IRS tax implications for the recipient. So even if those two declarations or you know, the federal one didn't exist, and even if this board declared an event, a natural disaster event of whatever magnitude, a disaster, how would we address the tax implications for the recipient?
Mahalo. Thank you for bringing that up. That is one of the concerns about doing it in-house, because we are not a 501c3. So typically, when we do use a third party and they're a nonprofit, the beneficiaries are sheltered from that tax. So I know that Everett is looking into what that tax implication would be, but certainly we have an obligation to let beneficiaries know by receiving this award that there will be a tax implication to that. And if there's any forms that we may need to, like, I don't know, any tax forms that need to be associated with that award, we would most likely want to give that to them at that same time.
Deleteria.
Thank you, Chair. Specific to defining and give the board an example of culturally aligned aid. What does that mean?
I think it's the approach that we take when dealing with our beneficiaries. We know from previous disasters here at Lahaina being one of them, the approach that OHA had with our VSAs was very different than the approach FEMA might have taken. Just in dealing with their trauma, understanding their communities. I think that we are better equipped to handle those issues with our beneficiaries than programs that are, nationwide and sort of like are taken from disaster to disaster without really taking into consideration, for Hawaii would be our people, their history, language, connection to Aina, types of businesses or the intergenerational lifestyles of our families.
So that would be like specific to health, Native Hawaiian health practices.
Mhm.
Ho'oponopono, that is probably not the right example.
Right. And it's broad, right? I mean, our
Yeah.
health strategy is quite broad when you're dealing with trauma in these situations. It can be quite broad as well. So I think like rushing in and distributing aid would have to be combined with the sensitivity and cultural grounding needed to deliver this.
Follow up. So where do we have a playbook in-house for this?
That's what we'll be working on in SOP. So that's one of the things when I came into, I started to look for, and Ilima and I have had conversations about what it would look like to develop that SOP.
Okay, okay,
Kana'aho is our foundation, yes.
okay, mahalo.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. Great point, Trustee Aquino, and I'm glad Kai touched on it as well. It needs to be justified, right, as far as that the taxes is concerned. And we had a very unique situation with Kana'aho in Maui, Lahaina fires. So I know Everett's looking into it. One thing to keep in mind, hopefully we can justify distributing it ourselves internally, because at the end of the day, if you look at it this way, our beneficiaries will get more potentially, because there's that sometimes 10%, up to 10% executive fees or more. Potentially, right, with an organization that we partner up
Yeah.
with. So I hope we can kind of navigate through this, but I guess it's up to Everett. If not, we got to follow the process. So thank you.
Stacy.
Yeah, and just to ensure that, the trustees are comfortable, that we will report back to the board what those implications are.
Just so,
Okay.
thanks, Chair. So we understand, this board understands the request or the due out, and that's to provide guidance for an approval process for the declaration of disaster to trigger aid. Do you envision that being something that we bring before the board in an action item that gets folded into our appendixes of our executive policy manual, or is that an SOP within this program, or similar to like how we talked the exec session operations manual that has a pretty clear and distinct flow chart? Do we looking at creating something like that?
Yes, through an action item that would be detailed and include just what you said, like a flow chart.
Okay.
Mahalo for that distinction. I do think, and I double checked with Everett as I looked over, we do think it is something that would be included in executive policy manual, because it is a board decision on when we would execute aid relief, that it would have to be spelled out clearly what are the parameters of what a disaster is, as proclaimed by this body. So we will work on starter language, And
Okay.
then we can send it over to Chief of Staff to continue to lomi it with you
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah, we can do that.
Any other questions before we move on to the next item? All right, go ahead. You can continue, Stacy.
So we're gonna keep Kapua here and she's gonna give us an update on the Emergency Financial Assistance Program.
Next slide. Okay. Okay, so our Emergency Financial Aid or Assistance or EFA program is our collaboration with Hawaiian Community Assets to deliver comprehensive financial support to Native Hawaiian ʻOhana across all of our counties. This program is not just about providing emergency aid, it's about building long-term financial resilience. And this is done by combining culturally relevant, trauma-informed financial counseling with direct emergency assistance for housing, food, other critical needs. It does align with MIMO Strategy 7, advanced policies, programs, and practices that strengthen ʻOhana abilities to pursue multiple pathways towards economic stability. Okay, next slide. So with HCA, we executed a 2-year, 1.66 million contract, which began April 1st, 2025. 1.16 million is dedicated to direct aid and includes 500,000 in matching funds from HCA. The grantee received an advance to begin services immediately, and trustees, the demand has been very overwhelming from our beneficiaries. So in the first quarter of this fiscal year, the numbers you see on here at Kalamai were as of last week. Yesterday, we received an update. So their update yesterday from April 1st through quarter 1 and through the end of August, which is 2 months into quarter 2, they've paid out more than 300,000 in aid to about 166 beneficiaries. Initially, the contract was for 120 beneficiaries over 2 years. So 60 the first year, 60 the second, and you can see by the updated numbers that the need has been great and they've already doubled what they had hoped to serve. The contract does have a mechanism that when HCA does need another advancement for the specific aid funds, that they do submit a distribution list. The list includes the islands served, the amount per island distributed, and what specific type of aid was assisted. And the funding is paid directly to the vendor, so not to the beneficiary. They do provide the document so that HCA can verify and then pay the vendors directly. These are one-time awards. So potential barriers, the demand is great. We are working with HCA to determine the next steps, meaning do we access funds from year 2? And if so, that means we come back to the BOT and we ask for additional funds through an action item while presenting you with the data needed to have that conversation. Yeah.
Trustee Alatario?
Thank you. Emergency. Does the help also go to legal counsel?
Legal fees, yes.
It does. So instead of going to like Native Hawaiian Legal Corp, you can go get your own private counsel.
They come in, so When beneficiaries go to HCA, there's an intake process, and part of the intake process is the beneficiary provides the documentation on what type of assistance they need, and then that is verified by HCA. So they may have come in already having incurred legal fees.
Okay. Okay, I got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Trustees, anyone else? Okay, you can go on to the next item.
At this time, I'd like to have Anu Awo-chan to come up to the table. She'll be presenting to trustees the implementation plan for ʻAha ʻŌpio, followed by the Washington DC Fellowship Program.
Hi, aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay. Next slide. So, ʻAha ʻŌpio is a week-long immersive residential program that builds Kanaka Iwi youth leadership through the development of skills, mentorships, and networking that will prepare participants for a variety of future pathways. It brings together 50 Kanaka Iwi high school students who will participate in huaka'i to various important sites, engagement with lahui and legislative leaders, and hands-on experiential learning to increase their leadership and civic engagement skills. This legacy began in 1988 from the vision of kupuna, educators, community leaders, cultural practitioners, OHA Board of Trustees, and staff. And together they created a program that guides ʻŌpio to understand what their kuleana is to their ohana, their kaiaulu, and lahui. And students will work together to learn and practice a variety of legislative processes, such as bill drafting, committee hearings, and testimony giving. By the end of the week, participants will demonstrate leadership skills. They'll engage in civic and legislative processes, strengthen their cultural identity through different cultural practice and learning of our history, build networks and pilina with their peers, with leaders and legislators, and develop a personal leadership plan. And this aligns with OHA's kuleana for advocacy and Mana'i Mauliola priorities around education that prepares our people to be college, career, and community ready. So outcome 1.2. Next slide. So we tried to make a list of all the different collaborative efforts that we were gonna have to engage both internally and externally. Almost all PAIA will be engaged across OHA, and we already met with many of the directors to share this is what we're thinking, this is the rollout timeline that we want to do, and help to co-design timelines that are going to work for the things that they have on their plate as well as the things that we're asking them for. So in terms of the trustees, we hope that you guys will be able to participate in a variety of ways. And some of those ideas include supporting when we are intaking applications for the review and the selection, offering mentorship opportunities with our ʻŌpio, speaking on panels throughout the event, and participating as you are available throughout the week. We also might need trustee support in engaging our external partners. So when we have to make connections at the Capitol or with different legislative leaders or community leaders, we might ask for your support in building that pilina and making those connections. And then in terms of external stakeholders, we really want to engage our ʻAha ʻŌpio alumni to participate in a variety of ways. So if they're available to help with co-planning, if they would like to be mentors and speakers at the event, or at the very least, just to offer their reflections on how the program impacted them through their participation in their lives. Yeah, okay, next slide. So we did map out a tentative budget for the $200,000 that was allocated for ʻAha ʻŌpio, and that includes the cost of housing, the ground transportation for the week, travel for participants who have to come in from neighbor islands, the food, the staffing, the honoraria for the different speakers and panel members, supplies, swag, and other contingencies. And we just are trying to design something that's very hands-on and experiential, culturally grounded, and data informed. So we want to use the the mana'o of the alumni and the different folks that have been a part of ʻAha ʻŌpio before to make sure that the design is really impactful. Next slide. So we were able to get feedback on the program design from Trustee Akaka and Trustee Chair Kahele's office, and we're open to meeting with other trustees if they want to help inform the program design. Maki'ile did extensive research on past ʻAha ʻŌpio programs, and she met with different planners from past events, OHA staff, community folks that were involved to start the programmatic design. And we've got some surveys in with research and evaluation for them to help us craft both an alumni survey and a participant survey to measure impact. And the budget proviso requires that we come before the board with a full agenda, curriculum, and timeline by December 31st. And we feel that we're kind of in alignment to be able to meet that deadline, that the process is rolling enough that we can make that deadline. And then the actual ʻAha ʻŌpio, we want to implement that week in June. So we got a quote from the East West Center for housing, because we felt like that was kind of one of our biggest things that we had to lock in quickly. We got a quote from them. We also asked for quotes from Kamehameha Schools and UH Manoa Housing, which is separate from East West Center, but they're not able to give us any quotes until December. And so if we wanted to lock something in, we could go with the East West Center, but we also have these other options that are tentatively available. Next slide. And then this matrix just tries to take that timeline and align some of the performance indicators that we're using. So we're trying to get a mix of quantitative and qualitative data to measure our impact. So we want to look at the just number of youth that participate, the number of legislative documents and I guess processes that they engage. So the work that the students produce, we're gonna look at that. We're going to survey them, and so we want to see an increased sense of their own kuleana, tulahui, and capacity for civic engagement at the close of the program. We're also trying to look at the number of alumni that we engage, the number of legislators and community leaders that are engaged, and then just the number of planning meetings and BOT info briefings that we engage in as part of the impact. Last slide. So we did try to identify some barriers, but we don't think that they're critical at this point. We feel like we have enough time to sort of mitigate for them. So one would have been insufficient recruitment, but we feel like if we get those recruitment materials out soon enough and we go to the different schools to talk about it, that we would be able to overcome that. There are some questions about facility and the venue conflicts, like if the capital is going to be available or not during the time that we want. And so we have some contingencies for that if the capital is not available. And yeah, we feel like we're in a good space in terms of timeline where we can sort of manage some of these potential issues. And the biggest thing we're trying to do is confirm the housing. Ground transportation is another issue because there's shortages of buses for just in general and drivers. And so we want to be able to, one, lock in the housing so that we can, two, then get the ground transportation secured. And then start to engage all the different stakeholders and partners, like our legislators, our Native Hawaiian organizations, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, that's kind of what we have for now on ʻAha ʻŌpio. Mahalo. Any questions?
For trustees, any questions? Go ahead, Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. I have a number of them, so maybe we can go by the slides. So maybe we can go back to the second slide with overview, with goals and outcomes. That one right, the one above. Yeah, mahalo. Yes, mic is on, thank you. So, with the goals and outcomes, mahalo for putting all of this together in terms of some of the things that we were discussing, considerations, and what the possibilities are. So mahalo for all the continued work you folks are doing on this. I also wanted to include on this with the goals and outcomes. I think there was really great points that were shared in the what will be presented after this in terms of the fellowship program. That I think we can also include here with ʻAha ʻŌpio. And that part is understanding the legacy of civic engagement as kanaka ʻōiwi throughout history. So I think that would be a good add-on for goal and outcomes. And then with the second, the slide after that, under the overview, it lists the various internal stakeholders on there and external stakeholders. So starting with internal stakeholders, I also think also with how it is with the fellowship that we have the inclusion of the Hawaiian Cultural Affairs, that PAIA, where they learn cultural protocols and Hawaiian history of advocacy. And then also we include, I think this is very integral, is the public policy and revisiting some of what we had discussed previously and looking at the option of, as it has been done in past times, where oftentimes the ʻŌpio are engaged so much that they are able to put together recommendations on what our ledge package could be coming forward with the upcoming ledge session. And then with the next slide, under scope and implementation, I know that was something that we were talking about in terms of the count and number, and another perspective, because I think 50 is a good number. And in further talking with alumni, with ʻAha ʻŌpio, it was mentioned that it was recommended that perhaps it would be good that we start with a smaller number. It could be as small as 15, 20, 25. And the reason shared was that, you know, we're starting this off again, and it's okay to start off small, and then we can build as time goes as we can. And so that way, I think it also would be that we wouldn't run into where we would have insufficient applications. But one of the high points that was mentioned to me as having a smaller group is because in having a smaller group, there's more possibility for a deeper pilina there. There's more of, it's more of a smaller, intimate circle. And one last thing too is that I think as you have it put in the fellowship as well, it would be a good opportunity for the ʻAha ʻŌpio to share either at the end or at different parts of the program, share with the board and some of what they're learning and what some of the reflections are and why they appreciate being a part of the program and any recommendations they might have. Thank you.
Mahalo. So I made note of all those recommendations, and the only question I have is on the amount of students that come. It's in the proviso language that we have 50 students, and so I would need approval to be able to change that. So and that's a decision for you guys to make.
Trustee Galatario? Oh, Kylie?
Yesterday, I had the privilege of attending the service at Mauna Ala for Lili'u. And I was amazed. I'm constantly amazed at Lili'uokalani Trust. Do we have any intersection with them, any kind of dialogue with them? Because they have a wealth of potential for ʻAha ʻŌpio. I just want to recommend that we at least start dialogue with them. They could provide at least 20 of the 50 in one fell swoop, you know? Okay?
Yep.
they do have a large and beautiful new building on the corner of Ward and King, I think. So there's space for programming there too. So more informational than question.
Okay,
Okay.
mahalo.
Mahalo.
Trustee Kahele.
Thanks so much. You know, there's a famous quote from Martin Luther King that talks about the fierce urgency of now. We need a nation of leaders now. We don't need smaller amount of leaders. We need as many leaders as we can have. So I realize maybe the suggestion from our trustee from Oahu. I think we need to fill every single one of these seats. I don't think we're going to have a problem filling any one of these seats. I think we're going to have to turn away people and our ʻŌpio from participating in this really exciting program. And so, there was a bill during the legislature, House Bill 763, that was championed by Rep. Amy Peruso to bolster civic education in Hawaii. One of the things in the bill it noted was that in the 2020 election, 40 states out of the 50 in our country had higher voter turnouts in the 2020 election than our state did. That placed us in the bottom of the rankings, the bottom 10 of 50 states in this country with voter turnout. And that is one of the things that ʻAha ʻŌpio, amongst many things, is aiming to achieve, is to take the next generation of Kanaka leaders, many of us who had a chance to be part of ʻAha ʻŌpio when it existed for almost a decade, and help prepare them to assume these seats at the board table and throughout business and government throughout the Pai'aina. And so I'm super excited that we're bringing this back. I know Trustee Akaka is a big proponent of it as well. I think it's going to be well received. I think you guys are off to a great start. The proviso does explicitly call for 50 students. And so I think that is the mandate from this board that we challenge you with in the budget. One exciting thing that I want to announce and is on one of your potential roadblocks that you had talked about was the venue location. And just a few days ago, I had a chance to speak to Speaker Nakamura from the House of Representatives. She is enthusiastic about this, wants to support anything that can help civic education in Hawaii, especially in the Native Hawaiian community. And so her verbal commitment is that the House of Representatives is ready to welcome ʻAha ʻŌpio in June of 2026. Already had a chance to speak to the Sergeant at Arms at the House, and it is available. Interestingly, as you guys are well aware, in an election year, the Office of Elections takes over the Capitol. And though they are using the State Senate, they are not using the House of Representatives. So it is available in that third week in June. I think it's the week of June 22nd. And so that'll be something we need to codify with the Speaker and her team and the clerk in the House, but we will be able to have ʻAha ʻŌpio there, and then also use some of the House committee rooms that are in the legislature as well. And I think what we will be able to execute in the summer of 2026 with these 50 rising seniors in their senior year and on the verge of being able to vote for the very first time as 18-year-olds, is we take them from ʻAha ʻŌpio and then we bring them to the Council for Native, or the Hawaiian Council's 2026 convention. And then we bring this group to the Association of Hawaiian Civic Club convention, and we help them register for that. And that is just a stepping stone in 2026 for these students that will get a chance to participate in this. So good job. Thank you for bringing it in front of us. I think you guys are well on your way, and we'll be able to have a good final plan by the end of the year, so you can take this out to communities and our Hawaiian focused charter schools and our, the Kamehameha schools and all the other public, serving institutions out there. Have you given thought at all to students, whether or not, we would open this up to those from the continent of Native Hawaiian ancestry that would come? I know in the past, this board, I know is familiar with people like Naka Nathaniel, who writes for Kawaiʻola, who was a part of ʻAha ʻŌpio, him and his sister in the early 1990s, and they came from Texas. Is that something that we're also entertaining as well?
Yeah, so I actually was gonna ask that question when I talked about DC fellowship and then just apply the answer to
Okay.
ʻAha ʻŌpio as well. But it is a question that we were wondering about if we have the capacity to open up the applications to non-residents of Hawaii. And we don't have a preference either way, we just need the directive. So if we are allowed to, then we would.
Okay.
Yeah.
And great, ideas on the housing. I think, East West Center would be an excellent choice. Kamehameha schools obviously as well during the summer if their dormitories are available. That's a good way for us to offset costs and also partner with, other partnering agencies and stakeholders that we can work with on this. So great job. And I know this board is really excited to be a part of this in, 2026 next summer.
Mahalo.
All right, trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. I hear what you're saying about the numbers, and I did want to ask you, Trustee Kahele, how many were participating in your class at the time?
51.
There were 51.
And part of the reason, trustee, is, well, in the 1991, I was a junior when I came, and I believe the number is 51. It's because there are 51 representatives in the House chamber, so every ʻAha ʻŌpio delegate has a seat, and that was one of the reasons why that was the number they used.
51. So 51.
Yeah.
Would we maybe look at bumping that number to 51 then?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, like this is a good way for us to start. I mean, maybe in subsequent years, we have ʻAha ʻŌpios in different islands and we can utilize other, government locations, on Hawaii Island, on Kauai. So I think this is a good start. And I think we're gonna have, as long as we can get the word out, and I think it's already kind of getting out. I know previous coordinators of this program are very, very excited that it's coming back, and they would love to add their expertise and their mana'o. People like Rona Rodenhurst were a big part of this program here at OHA, and Paula DeMorales. So they're out there, and they can provide some expertise. Some of them unfortunately have passed and are no longer with us today, but some are still alive that were a critical part of the program, and they can help, provide some information if you need that.
Yeah, it was actually at Rona's services that I learned about ʻAha ʻŌpio
ʻŌpio.
by two alumni that attended, that participated with her through that time. So thank you for mentioning her name. So I also wanted to touch on what Trustee Galataria had mentioned regarding his visit with Mauna Ala, as that was something that I meant to share as well in terms of the external stakeholders, in terms of huaka'i partnerships, that I think it would be really great for our ʻŌpio to be able to visit places that are the final resting places of our ali'i. So that includes Mauna Ala, and I was also thinking that it would be appropriate as well to visit the Ali'iolani Hale, specifically the King Kamehameha V Judiciary History Center, as it holds so much history as how we even got to the place that we have through the years, with the challenges and celebrations that go with that. But it's very, I think that would be another option for our ʻŌpio to be able to be immersed in these spaces. Mahalo. Oh, one other thing too. I know that we did discuss what the possibilities would look like with including our haumana from the continent. And as that was brought up today, and I do recall part of what we were discussing was in terms of our abilities from budgeting purposes, as well as what we have learned through time in terms of what our mission entails and our capabilities and confines that are from that. And maybe that's something that we can further explore in terms of what that means, because ideally, I really would appreciate for us to be able to expand it towards our continental ohana, as that is part of what our work is to be able to bring our people back home if they so choose to. But any way in which that we can further that discussion, I'm open to. And then one other thing to mention that we discussed previously too was how we could immerse this as well in time with a reemergence of our ʻaha kupuna. Yes. Mahalo.
Kapohana just had a suggestion. We can utilize the CNHA convening as an opportunity to recruit and possibly pre-register ʻŌpio for the program as well. So we think that that'll be a really great opportunity.
And as well as with the Hawaiian Civic Club Convention coming up as well. And our remaining island community meetings. And neighborhood board meetings. And all the other meetings we have.
Any other questions, trustees? All right, we're going to move on to, thank you so much. We're going to move on to number 4. Go ahead, Stacy.
Me again. Just waiting for the slides. You can go to the next one, please. Thank you. Okay, so the purpose of the Washington, D.C. Fellowship is in direct alignment with OHA's mission to cultivate Kanaka Oiwi leaders who are committed to build a strong lahui, recognized nationally and internationally through advocacy and civic engagement. Fellows will spend 1 year in Washington, D.C. and serve in congressional offices, committees, and or caucuses to learn the mechanics of policy making and skills that will translate into their own personal growth and development of their sense of kuleana. By the end of the experience, fellows will understand our legacy of civic engagement as Kanaka Oiwi throughout history, experience federal advocacy through work with our current legislators, committees, and working groups, and build networks and pilina with key leaders at the federal level. And we hope to measure both quantitatively and qualitatively for this program as well through our engagement data, participant surveys, and then written reflections and interview verbal reflections from our participants. Next slide. So again, we'll be working very collaboratively across all of our ʻOHA paia and with external stakeholders in terms of what we might need help with from our BOT. We're already getting assistance coordinating with the NHO and with the congressional members. We would ask for support on to serve on the selection committees when the applications come in, and also possibly providing mentorship either via online meetings, or if trustees happen to be in Washington, D.C. and want to meet up with our fellows, we would ask for your support in those ways. Legal is helping us execute the MOA to get the match funds from our NHO. And then HR is providing us assistance on researching all the necessary documents and onboarding processes that we would have to engage to get the fellows on board. And so SNI has co-developed all of the different program design, the criteria, the application process, the deliverables. We can help with the onboarding sessions and just in general the project management. But grants is also helping us to co-design all of that, as well as they're going to help us in setting up the application platform, in receiving all the documents and the information, and then help with administering the funds and support of the fellows over the course of the year. And then comms is gonna help us with all the logo development, the media branding, the recruitment materials, and just the documentation of the storytelling at the end of the program. And also R&E is helping us develop the different impact measures and the tools that we're gonna use to collect our data. And then externally, we have internally, advocacy is also going to be really crucial in helping us develop some of the onboarding materials or support in identifying some of the issues that the fellows might want to understand better from a Native Hawaiian perspective. And then externally, we have an NHO that will offer match funds. They can also support on the selection and the review committee and provide mentorship for the fellows. And then our congressional offices would be providing the placements, the mentorship, the opportunities, and the support on the ground in Washington, D.C. Okay, next slide. So again, it's a 1-year fellowship for 6 beneficiaries. We wanted it to run from January 2025. Sorry, yes, that's correct. From January to December. And so, and I'll talk a little bit about the timeline later, but essentially the fellows would receive funding that will support their cost of living expenses while they're living in Washington, D.C. So their housing, their just their living needs and relocation, etc. And then they'll be hosted by the different congressional offices in Washington, D.C. Some of the eligibility include having a bachelor's degree before the time of the fellowship, showcasing their strong commitment to our to serve and be a part of civic engagement, advocacy, and policy, willingness and capacity to relocate to Washington, D.C. for the full year, and then their eligibility to maintain the different clearances that they would need to access the offices that they would be working in. So the application process that we have drafted would include different essay prompts, recommendation forms from their mentors and or their their teachers and faculty at their university, and then a video response. So given the timeline, we didn't think that there was going to be enough of a window to do face-to-face interviews. So we have a video prompt that they can submit instead, and that will give some of at least the oral communication skills and that kind of compelling communication style in a video. And so we hope that that's going to give us a sense of what their goals are, if they're aligned to the project aims, and their capacity to successfully complete the fellowship. Next slide. So we did have kind of an aggressive timeline. We had wanted to launch recruitment this month and then have the fellows selected by November so that they could be placed in DC by January. But we might have to push it back slightly because there were some things that we have to research that came up around the status, I guess, of the fellows. Like, are they gonna be independent contractors? Are they gonna be employees? And so HR is helping us to figure out all those different nuances of what they would be categorized as, and then what the implications are for the different ways that we onboard them. And so we're still waiting on some of that, and so that might push the timeline back. So some of it is because of tax, but some of it is because of the laws in DC. So Washington, DC has certain laws for employment that have to be followed depending on, like what you are. And so those are some of the things that we need to get guidance on to be able to finish the design and then the launch of the program. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it's in process. And so HR is already looking into all of that. Yes, next slide. So at the end of the fellowship, we were asking the participants to present before the BOT to share their experiences, their growth, their future plans, given their participation in the fellowship. And so that presentation plus their own written and verbal responses should show an increased sense of kuleana towards civic engagement and advocacy, and a move toward their own future careers in those related fields. So in terms of performance indicators, we're looking at the number of fellows that get placed, their own growth as seen by their survey data and their written and their verbal reflections, and then the number of alumni who end up securing careers or pursue future maybe future education in related fields towards civic engagement and advocacy. Okay, next slide. So I had to prep this presentation and submit it before a meeting that we had that helped to clarify some of these questions. So long story short, these were some of the questions that I had referenced that we're trying to research and figure out around some of the DC policies and laws for employment, for congressional ethics, just our own employment processes and procurement processes, and then what it would mean for the fellows in terms of taxes, and then any post-fellowship obligations or restrictions that might occur depending on how we do the project design. And so we already had a meeting with chair's office, with HR, with legal to kind of talk through some of these questions, and now people are helping to do the research for it. Next slide. Yep, so in terms of next steps, we're going to continue planning the portions that we can and just prep whatever materials that we can while we wait guidance on some of the other parts. We're working with the directors and staff in the other PAYA to help prep for the things that we might need from them. And then, as always, we welcome feedback from the trustees. When the applications launch, if you guys are available to help be on the selection panel, that would be very helpful. And then, like I said, mentorship opportunities if they become available. And then the one question that I did have, and it does apply to ʻAha ʻŌpio as well, is on applicant eligibility. So we had initially written in that it was for Hawaii residents, and then legal provided us the language there that underscores reside in Hawaii. So we were using that as the grounding like legal precedent. And I understand that in past programs like ʻAha ʻŌpio, Native Hawaiians in other states were a part of those programs. And so we don't have like a strong recommendation either way. We just need the guidance from our BOT or from legal or whoever it is that has that authority to tell us if we can open the programs to non-residents of Hawaii or not, and then what the implications of that might be. Yes, oyo vale, mahalo.
Trustee Kahele.
I might have missed it, but can you give us an update on, maybe this is also a legal question to the MOU, MOA between OHA and the NHO?
Good morning, trustees. The MOU is still pending. I think there was a draft MOU that was circulated some weeks ago. However, I think in light of those discussions that happened last week and the questions that came up, I think we're still revisiting the respective roles and responsibilities of OHA and the partnering organization. So that would then affect the language, of course, in the MOU. So I think that MOU is still under review, but it's going to need to be informed with revisions based on this additional analysis.
But your team is in coordination and communication with the principals, with the NHL. You guys are talking and fleshing out some of those details together?
Not at this time. However, I think it's going to have to be revisited once we get some of the answers about how best to deal with the, like, for instance, the employment issue that Anna described earlier. That might affect how we have to, bring on these fellows, or the way in which we have to maybe coordinate with another employing organization. And that is also going to affect how the funds go toward these positions, and then the respective roles about the parties relating to the hiring, or the supervision of these people.
I just think that, one of the things is our target is January. We may be able to have some of these legal questions flushed out, as soon as possible, shortly. This shouldn't be something that takes months to figure out, right? This should be a top priority for us to get these answers to. And I'm not saying it's going to take that long, but if we are doing some of the administrative things, like coming to what is close to an agreement on what that MOU, MOA will be with the NHL partnering organization, and then we're also leaning forward a little bit on potentially taking this out so we can have an applicant list, and we have at least an idea of people that are interested, whether it's a January fellowship that begins or a June fellowship. Like we're already leaning forward on an applicant pool, so that if and when we have those answers, we can pull the trigger and put things in place pretty quickly. January is a good time to start as a congressional intern, because that's when the Congress reconvenes after the Christmas holidays, and all the real legislative work, policy work, committee work begins. In an election year, which 2026 is, the Congress basically adjourns for all of August and all of October in an election year. In a non-election year, it's just August. So starting, let's say if you were to start fellows 6 months later in June, they're going to lose time with Congress basically as a ghost town in August and October in an election year. So having them start earlier gives them that full exposure to the DC calendar, if we can make that happen. And the other issue with that is commitments with congressional offices, whether they're Hawaii delegation or other member offices. If we secure a position in those offices, we are already having conversations with Hawaii's congressional delegation, and we're unable to fill that in January, then that is potentially an intern slot lost, not only for us, but for them. So I think there's multiple things need to be happening at once to make this happen. And I wouldn't wait, Everett, on the legal side and getting this agreement with our partnering NHL right up to the finish line, whether it's ready for execution. I wouldn't wait to collaborate and communicate for a few more weeks until maybe some of these legal questions are sorted out. I would start having those now. And we should. It's September, right? We passed the budget on June 30th. So we're already 60 days into the passage of the budget.
Okay, thank you for the additional guidance, and we can reprioritize the work on the MOU.
Thank you.
Steve Galatario.
Thank you, Chair. And a follow-up to Chair Kahele's questions about the NHL. As we fashion the MOU, have there been any overtures to the Native Hawaiian Organization Association? Do they know we're coming? There's an organization that all of these NHOs are housed under. Are you familiar with that? No, you are. So that would be, once we start to amplify, we're looking for partnerships. That would probably be a good place. This is just for added information for you, because they're all housed under one association, Shannon Edidham. Okay, you need any information, let me know. Okay. Secondly, Does this fellowship initiative coincide in any way, and Stace, you could probably answer this, with an opening of an OHA location in DC?
So we have, as you know, in BAE, we have been talking about that actual having the position. um, because in the budget, we now have an appropriation for a DC bureau chief. So we are gonna be proceeding with the hiring of that, and we have to determine if, what is that next step, if that's gonna be a resident of Hawaii, because, so we've had conversations of where this person needs to be residing. So there's a lot of these employment conversations that we're having in the background to ensure that we're being compliant to HRS and employment law. So I can come back to the board with a more definitive plan on that DC Bureau Chief position as well as the location. Mahalo.
Oh, go ahead, Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. I had shared with the different members here a previous article that was published in Kawaiʻola in 2019 regarding this same fellowship program, and it was talking about the renaming to the Daniel K. Akaka Congressional Fellowship. And I wanted to share some of the quotes in here and some of so those that might be familiar with this, further familiarize or revisit this, or those that are not familiar to further familiarize with it, and those that might be already familiar to revisit some of what some of the sharings are and the positive impacts on what the fellowship has been through the years. So, and I also wanted to touch on this too, because I was interested in knowing maybe with the change, why we would change the name or encourage it to keep it the same, and also touch on that in previous times we did collaborate with this with the Kamehameha schools. And when I did try to inquire a little about this internally, I think there was still some wonderings as to why that partnership might have ended, whether it was because of COVID or other reasons, but something to consider as well. So, starting with the quote from Senator Schatz, it says, Senator Akaka was a powerful and unique voice for Native Hawaiians throughout his many years of service. It is fitting that the Congressional Fellowship be named in his honor as its recipients continue his legacy of ensuring Native Hawaiian voices are present in critical conversations that directly affect the Hawaiian community and the entire state. And I share this as well as it's in alignment with some of the purposes of this fellowship. And the second quote by Senator Hirono, I have been fortunate to participate in the OHA DC Fellowship Program for each of its cohorts and thank OHA and Kamehameha Schools for their commitment to this program. In the wake of this year's recently, so this is in 2019, in the wake of this year's recently conducted diversity survey of Senate staff, it is clear that the Senate and likely the entire Congress can improve representation of all of our Indigenous people, especially Native Hawaiians. Separately, ensuring that individuals interested in empowering the Native Hawaiian community are provided the opportunity to learn about federal policy and how to engage at the federal level is an important priority for me and will be impactful for the Native Hawaiian community as they continue to explore, among other things, self-determination. I look forward to continuing this important partnership. And then a quote from then Congresswoman Gabbard. Through the Congressional Fellowship Program, sponsored by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, OHA, and Kamehameha Schools, I have had the privilege of having emerging Oiwi leaders serve Hawaii as members of my team. They work on substantive legislation, provide insight into matters of importance to the Native Hawaiian community, and on the issues before Congress, all while learning the inner workings of the federal government. Senator Daniel Kahikina Kaka was a dear friend and a mentor. He dedicated his life serving to the people of Hawaii and this country through the military, as an educator, and in the halls of Congress. Mahalo to OHA and Kamehameha Schools for their continued commitment to this program. now named in his honor and keeping the spirit of aloha and service that Senator Akaka embodied alive in the generations of Native Hawaiians who follow in his footsteps. Also, a quote from Congressman Case states, "The Akaka Fellowship recognizes and honors the importance that Senator Akaka always placed on education for not only advancement, but its own sake. Both before and throughout his long service in Congress, he was first and always an educator. He would be very proud and humbled at this recognition of his life's work, but even more, he would be excited for the next generations of Native Hawaiian leadership, especially in public service, that were, are, and will be enabled by this fellowship. Elected public office is among the highest responsibilities and honors in our democracy, and Senator Akaka would especially encourage and welcome his fellowship, starting those next generations down that path." So I think this touches on some of the very important parts of why this fellowship continues and how this is encouraging our Native Hawaiian voices of our ʻŌpio in advocacy and with the ongoing challenges that we have within our government and our community. So what I was thinking too is that with the naming of this, as it has been, the Daniel K. Akaka Congressional Fellowship, I think it would be nice to have his middle name as well, instead of just being K, but Kahikina, to be the Daniel Kahikina Akaka Congressional Fellowship. Mahalo.
Mahalo for that, Trustee Akaka. Thank you so much. Anyone else? All right, we're going to move on to our next item. Please, Stacy, go ahead.
Mahalo, Chair. At this time, I'd like to ask Poni Askew to come up. She's Director of Economic Resilience. She'll be doing a 6-month update on the ʻAha program, access to home ownership.
Aloha, welcome.
Morning.
Good morning. New presentation for ʻAha.
Oh, that's one. Thank you so much. So the intention of today's presentation is to highlight the pilot results of the ʻAha program, provide an update on employee eligibility, and outline next steps for sustaining momentum. So this pilot is actually showing some strong results to date. We have 308 beneficiaries that are in the pipeline and 13 loans that are now closed or in contract. And both of these numbers are up from the time of submitting this presentation. So that's the reason for the discrepancy in numbers. The average loan amount is about $548,000. It's mostly condos and townhomes. What's really interesting about that is it's right at the entry level price point, meeting families at this transition possibly from renter to homeowner, which means we're serving them where their greatest needs might be to become homeowners in the ʻAha program. By eliminating PMI, families are saving an average of $266 to $630 every month. Over the life of OHA's encumbered funds on a loan, that equals about $37,000 in average savings per family, with some saving as much as $53,000. What's most important in what we've learned is that this monthly savings often makes the difference between qualifying and not qualifying for a mortgage. Next slide. On employee participation, the Hawaii State Ethics Commission reviewed our program description in August and confirmed that OHA employees and their immediate ohana are eligible for ʻAha. Participation is fully compliant with the state ethics code. The commission's condition is clear that employees cannot receive any special or favorable treatment because of their positions here. The win for us was our process that we have internally that ensures that we have a strict documentation process with each step of the way, from calling in immediately first to OHA, getting them HRP verified, and then referring them to ASB. Every step of the way has a time-stamped intake form that we follow, that's also dated. And so doing that has allowed us to be able to get that approval from the Ethics Commission. I think it's really important to mahalo Everett for his legal guidance on reaching out to Ethics Commission to get this approval, but also our BSAs and our HRP team, Ilima and Star, for their role in maintaining the integrity of this process. We were able to submit that to Ethics Commission and we got the okay. So with that confirmation paired with a fully documented and intake and referral process, it will protect the integrity of our program, make sure we're compliant under state law, and also provide this added value to our employees who are also beneficiaries here. Next slide. So OHA placed an initial deposit of $1.5 million with ASB to secure mortgages through this pilot. Of that, 539,000 have been encumbered. There's 343,000 in closing, so it's being held, and about $617,000 left in remaining in that initial 1.5 tranche. These numbers confirm that the pilot is actively being used and funds are moving into the community. And then as a reminder, this is a revolving structure, so funds are recycled back as loans are paid down to 80% loan to value ratio. This confirms that the pilot is working as intended, funds are being deployed, families are entering homes, and our commitment continues to benefit more beneficiaries over time. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And the accounts that the money is in is also interest bearing. In September, which is this month we're in already, we're rolling out press coverage and beneficiary stories to show how the pilot is working in our communities. The plan includes a feature in the Star Advertiser, pending confirmation, of course, by them on September 8th. And then Bill and his team are rolling out a video series of ʻAha recipients as of September 9th. And then we're also looking at a 6-month dashboard update to be delivered for you by September 19th. So we'll have a standard format designed by the comms team that we will be submitting every 6 months. So mahalo to Bill and his team for his support. In looking ahead, of course, we announced yesterday to our internal staff of the eligibility for them and their immediate Ohana members at Kapohana's Ke Kulana meeting. What's next for us is the second tranche of the 1.5 million. It's on track to be deposited by September 30th. But I do plan on coming back on the 17th with an action item to ask for approval to move ʻAha from a pilot to a permanent status. With that approval, we can then release that second tranche on time and keep the program moving without interruptions. And then the last bit of updates, I'm sorry, the next slide would be the dashboard oversight. Next one. Yeah, thank you. So with that 6-month reporting dashboard, what I was really hoping to get feedback from you folks today is what exactly you would like to see on the dashboard. And so similarly to what I'm providing today, I wondered if there was anything in addition to these updates that I'm providing that you would like to see on 6-month dashboard updates, such as maybe a referral to closing timeline, geographic distribution, the pace at which funds are being recycled back. I would love that feedback so I can go back with comms and work on a pretty accurate dashboard to what you folks are looking for. So I'd first like to solicit your feedback on that, and then maybe if you have any additional questions.
Trustees, any questions? Okay. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I don't have
Trustee
direct-
Kelly.
I'd have to give more thought to your question about more dashboard feedback.
Sure.
I think the things that you've initially mentioned sound spot on.
Okay.
Got to think if there's anything else that would have.
Chair, would you like me to circle back with you via
Yeah,
email
yeah,
just to see
yeah.
and ping you if you have any other thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or any of the other trustees too.
Okay.
I do have another question though, Chair. Is that okay? So for the program is we have an agreement with ASB right now.
Correct.
Is there a timeline of when that grant agreement expires and we will need to renegotiate that, or how does that work? You talked about making the program possibly permanent, or how?
Yeah, I think it was articulated as such that it was a pilot. And so I would have to go back to confirm this, but it's my recollection that it was for the first tranche of the 1.5. So we may have to go back and have another discussion with ASB, but I need to confirm that in the contract.
Okay.
To be sure, but I'm almost certain it was based on the first tranche and a pilot program.
Okay. And that tranche is almost
We're about 50%
50%.
spent on
okay.
it.
Okay.
So I would say that gives us about 3 months to 4 months, considering the time that we've seen it roll out in the last 6. And knowing what's in the pipeline right now, we have maybe about 3 to 4 months of spending down that first tranche.
And then where would the second tranche come from?
I could literally just ask for it. Yeah, oh, yes. It is budgeted in the biennium
To approve
1.5.
that, right.
Yeah. So then it would just be triggering a response or a request to deposit into ASB.
And I guess with that being said, getting feedback from our beneficiaries in making modifications or adjustments to that grant agreement, I think would be worthwhile having with ASB on both ends, right? What are feedback that they have on their end? What's feedback that our beneficiaries that have used the program or are using in the program? How could we make some adjustments? One of the things that I remember from, and most of us were there in Maui when we spoke to one of our frustrated beneficiaries who hopefully has come to some resolution on.
She's
their
getting a loan actually with ʻAha. So
Okay,
yeah.
fantastic. That's awesome. And I don't know if this was one of the concerns she had brought up, that we had been able to run that to conclusion, but it would be something to bring up in the new agreement if we did do a second tranche with ASB, was that the OHA was basically putting down the 20% down towards her loan to help her qualify and whatever associated closing costs. She was still being amortized at 100% loan to value and not being amortized on her monthly payment at 80% loan to value. So even though we're putting the 20% down, normally you would be financing 80% of that mortgage, but her principal and interest payment from ASB was being calculated at 100% loan to value. So her monthly payment was higher, even though we were putting down the money that ASB was holding and recirculating right through the program.
Right.
But that would be one of the things I would want to look at possibly revisiting, so that they have a lower monthly payment, right? That's the goal, is to get them into the house and put as much resources in their pocket for utilities or groceries and whatever they need. It makes a big difference, even if it's a few $100s per month. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to revisit that. What I think I hear you saying is that if, in order to do that, we would trigger a down payment assistance program to be able to bring it down. I'm not sure if I understand what you're saying. That would be nice. But for ʻAha, we don't offer it that way. So then it would be she would be still paying the 3% down that she's required to put down in the ʻAha program. And then our 17% just waives the PMI. So it's really a PMI waiver program. And I think a key takeaway I had from that feedback, and maybe from other beneficiaries, is that we just need to better educate what ʻAha is versus a down payment assistance program.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah, mahalo, Chair. One of the things that pointed out, there's 300 some odd beneficiaries in the pipeline, and that's amazing, but it's still contingent on again, loan approval and then inventory. So one of the biggest things is once you get that loan approval, the beneficiary has to have a property already in mind. So there's some timing that goes along, with this process. But again, it's moving. One of the things that, we've talked about too is how do we recycle faster, right? I think that recycling time to get more beneficiaries into homes is something that we want to aspire to.
I think the other, besides a down payment assistance program that has bubbled up as a need, is just the general educational component of becoming a homeowner. So with the 300 plus that we've referred to ASB, there's only about, well, there's probably about 10% that have gotten approved. And then of that, we have the 13 that are actually on the ground, boots to the ground, looking for a home. And so the question is, what about the others? And how come they're falling out of the pipeline? And what do we do as part of our kuleana to get people to be homeowners? Do we help to facilitate that 90% that aren't becoming homeowners, that made it through the very steps? Because once they get to ASB, the reports we get is whether they're eligible for the loan or ineligible for the loan, and then whether they follow through thereafter. So I think there's some other things that are coming out of this pilot program that we can create programs for to further assist our beneficiaries on their pathway to homeownership.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions before? Okay, go ahead, Trustee Akaka. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, well. Madam Chair, there's no question, obviously, this program is very effective. We've got 13 closed. That's a beautiful number. I think this is the first time we can actually say that here at OHA, right? And so that's great. We're moving in the right direction. I guess reevaluating the process in the future, right? Seeing potentially how much more funds needs to be thrown at this program. And then, like Chair Kahele was talking about, interviewing our beneficiaries, which I think Bill has been doing on the ones who closed, and seeing how the process was, how we can make it better, communicating that to American Savings Bank. What's cool to keep in mind is that this funds is not a direct payment, right? It stays in an interest-bearing account. So that's going to grow over time. So the next time we may not have to put $1.5 million. We can take the dividends from that or whatever, so which is cool. But yeah, definitely what you touched on, the down payment assistance program, how we can offset the others, and then the mortgage education component, which is super key, because without that, they can't even get to this step. So, but it sounds like we're moving, and also, good job.
Mahalo. In regards to the dashboard, I think as time goes on, we'll have some more ideas on how we can go forward with that. And I think we can start with the most basic of information, like you had mentioned, by island community district. Something that comes to mind is, as we meet with our legislators, that 1 to 2 pager that we provide, that we can continually update that as well, so that we can provide them that information, and that if they so choose to, they can share that in their town hall or in their newsletters that they distribute, whether it's digitally and or by mail. And that, I think that's a continued good partnership that we have with our legislators as well, and something that we can also share with our Hawaii federal delegation, as well as our county council members as well. Another thing as well is, I think it would be great for us, of course, with the clearance and okay by the ohana/recipients, to be able to share the visuals of these ohanas that are receiving this benefit, and so that those that might be interested, and I think a lot of times within our culture, sometimes there's some hila-ness to it, right? So if they might see a familiar face, then they might ask that ohana what their experience was like, and then there can be that exchange as well. So if we could have some visuals up there, that would be really great. And I think it would be good to constantly have that in our flow of our social media communication, and as well shared between the Office of Foreign Affairs and the American Savings Bank. And that maybe perhaps we could even have a dedicated page with them to be able to provide a link to the OHA website, as I see that they have the High Now Daily video still up. And I want to say a link to the source of, maybe this is our press release. Okay, and one more thing too. I know this is something that we kind of touched on around the budget time, but something that we could look at too is going forward with the budget, the annual budget. This is something that we can look at an option to continually dedicate a certain amount, as it is in alignment with our strategic plan with the priority of housing, that we can look at an amount, whether it increases, remains the same, or it could go down because the interest is just building through that and with the recycling of the funds. Something that we can consider with the funding, with our budget, that we have a certain amount that we dedicate towards that. And then we can see as time goes how we can effectually make it work for our beneficiaries and be able to share that story.
Matt, any other questions before we move on to item number 6?
Mahalo, Chair. At this time, I'd like to ask Bill Brennan, our Director of Communications, to bring us home. So the first update will be our implementation plan for the ʻŌlelo community media coverage for OHA board and standing committee meetings.
Mahalo kapohana. Good morning, Chair
Good
Alapa,
morning.
committee members. Appreciate your patience. I know it's 2 hours and I'll bring it home as Stacy mentioned. So, the comms team, the IT team, the board staff has been working closely with our counterparts at ʻŌlelo for ʻŌlelo to begin providing coverage of the BOT meetings and the standing committee meetings. The goal is to have wider availability and access to OHA public meetings produced professionally and available in a place where most members of the public on this island are accustomed to viewing their open government programming. And this is in alignment with our OHA goals and BOT priorities. So I think having these meetings on ʻŌlelo, live as they happen, available for later viewing if you missed it, will go a long way toward expanding our reach to beneficiaries and the public. Next slide, please. You know, initially the discussion was to have ʻŌlelo provide coverage of all our board meetings, no matter what island they happen to occur on. During budget negotiations, that got scaled back a little bit. The money was some of the money was repurposed for other projects and programs, and so the geographic focus of the ʻŌlelo coverage will be here on Oahu. Key phases as of this point are preliminary meetings and our coverage launch. The amount in the budget for this is $192,913. Next slide, please. Okay, so during the months of July and August, as I mentioned, we've had several meetings with BOT staff, the OHA IT staff, and the technical folks from ʻŌlelo as well, to determine, they've been in this room several times, determining the technical feasibility and needs. They have just purchased some top-of-the-line equipment, cameras and new audio equipment. And we'll begin equipment installation and testing here in the month of September. So I think they'll be back when the board is, probably before the board gets back together, but again, do kind of a dry run rehearsal during your meetings scheduled later this month, with the goal to initiate our live coverage of the BOT and standing committee meetings beginning with the October meetings. So we've been working at it hard and, had questions answered by the IT folks, Kevin and that team and Guy, and they've been very helpful. And I think, so far so good. If we need more, we'll have some more. ʻŌlelo is Oahu's designated public educational and government, or PEG, access provider. It's obligated to facilitate and provide cable TV coverage for government entities. ʻŌlelo serves an important community function by allowing viewers access to the workings of their government. It also provides government agencies at the city, state, and federal levels with the means to communicate with their constituents. ʻŌlelo plays a crucial role in promoting transparency in government and civic participation, which I know are board priorities, by providing a platform for government entities to air public hearings, timely messages, and other programs. ʻŌlelo community media's existence and mission are intertwined with ensuring government entities have a dedicated platform to reach the public through cable TV. The next step we need to do is finalize an MOA with the ʻŌlelo folks. And as I mentioned, just have them come in, do a test run, make sure their equipment is running. I know they've run some tests on the newly purchased equipment up there at their headquarters in Ma'apunapuna, but they will be here to do the same after or during the rest of September. I think that's maybe it for that. Any questions about
Trustees?
where we stand with ʻŌlelo and its coverage of our meetings?
Thanks, Paul, for the Bill.
That's
the
okay.
update.
A big call burst.
Apologize that. So we're looking at October, maybe?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
We have 3 board meetings and standing committee meetings in October. It's one of the few months we have 3 meetings. So
Yes.
a lot of opportunities there.
Yes.
But I think this is great. And, just quick look at our YouTube page. If you look, just historically in the last 3 months and look at the amount of views on each of the meetings we have, they're less than 200.
Yes.
This gives us access to 1 million people on this island
Yes.
that will have an opportunity to plug in and watch our OHA meetings, for our beneficiaries to watch our OHA meetings, especially those that are given that opportunity through the PEGs and ʻŌlelo. So I think this is going to be really good for OHA and allows us to go right into the living rooms and the TVs of many residents on the island of Oahu. And hopefully, as the board and OHA sees the value in this, and if we have good feedback from it, then we can look at expanding it to the other PEGs. I don't know if ʻŌlelo would do the same on the different islands, or we would use, ʻŌlelo and ʻAkaku and the different PEGs on the major islands.
Yes.
So anyway,
That can be done.
Great job.
And I do think that once the meetings are concluded and are available on demand, that you would just need to go from any island to the ʻŌlelo website and call up the rebroadcast or watch it. So it's not that you have to live and be a cable TV subscriber on Oahu only to see the event. That would be the way to see it live, but there would be opportunities for beneficiaries on all the islands to eventually see these meetings. And as I mentioned, ʻŌlelo is the place where people are accustomed to going to watch their government in action, whether it's the Honolulu City Council, legislative committee meetings, the like. Heart board meetings happen on ʻŌlelo for the rail project. It's the place where people expect their government to be. So I think now is as good a time as any for us to join those groups and having a presence.
Right, and it's
on ʻŌlelo.
it's elevating OHA and this board to a higher level, a higher
Yes.
standard.
Yes.
And that's what we should be aspiring to be.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And I really want to mahalo one more time, the IT folks from OHA and Lehua and others from the BOT suite who've helped and met and answered questions and accommodated the ʻŌlelo folks. It's certainly a team effort. It's not just comms. There's several PIA involved in helping to pull this off, and we look forward to the first live coverage. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, awesome.
Amy, yes, go ahead, Kalei.
Mahalo Trustee Kahele for mentioning the Akaku and Naleo TV, as that was something I wanted to mention because I think that's something when we go to neighbor islands and we see our ohana to there, that is something that is often on the TV, and to be able to have a broader reach to our rural communities as well. And it reminds me of when my grandfather would be back home when he wasn't in DC. Oftentimes we would have on the TV ʻŌlelo, and
course.
it might be a neighborhood board meeting or so forth. And now I find myself having that on the TV screen or on my whatever screen I have in front of me with a replay of whatever meeting might have happened. And I also want to mahalo this initiative as well, because having worked at the legislature and then coming in time to work here at the Office of Foreign Affairs, I did ask when I came on, I see that they have that at the legislature and at county councils. Is that something that OHA would consider? Different reasons were given at that time. That's okay. So I'm glad that now we're going forward and where we're looking at more options to have our what we're working on be able to be shared more broadly, as I think it will answer some of the constantly asked questions in terms of why does OHA exist? What does OHA do? How does this affect myself and my ohana and my community?
Yeah.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, Trustee.
Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing too. It's regarding the setup. Yeah, just one other thing regarding the setup. As we see at the legislature, ʻŌlelo has their area that they're working with inside the room,
Yeah.
and then there's that area that they need outside the room
Yes.
too. So I'm interested to see what that configuration would look like within this boardroom and perhaps in the neighbor islands as well.
Yes. Well, I know for here, we've looked at the storage room behind this wall as kind of the setup for the control room, if you will, for coverage. We've had to address questions about what happens when the board goes into executive session, who has to leave, cable running under doors, make sure this room becomes secure for that kind of thing. So a lot of logistics that we've had to work out, that we've talked to the IT folks about, and that's why I say that they'll come in and we'll do a test run and make sure that all those issues are addressed before we go ahead and start the live coverage.
They have a great team at ʻŌlelo, and
Yes.
I do recall that we have worked with them through time when it comes to our investitures.
Yes, exactly.
And so forth.
Yes, they're no strangers. Yeah.
Yes. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Thank you. It's pretty much you answered it. I was gonna, the minimum invasive to this room, the better.
Yes,
They'll be calling the shots from another room.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Now,
I think they plan to still utilize the cameras we have
Yeah.
here, in addition to supplementing with the new equipment that they have. So
I know they're good at what they do. They
yes,
don't
yes,
get in the way,
that's right.
that's the job. Don't get in
Yes.
the way.
Yes,
Secondly, we all know that ʻŌlelo has good relationships with the neighbor island public
yes,
broadcasting too.
yes,
So this is not rocket science for anybody.
right.
So as little, we're gonna let them in, which is a good thing,
Yes. Yeah.
Now, how do we promote it?
Well, I think, before the first meeting here, that we issue a press release and let people know, maybe have some sound bites from some of the trustees talking about how, excited they are to have a new home for coverage of the meetings. But yeah, definitely need to, the usual social media, our website, press release, those kind of platforms that we use to publicize, to let people know, because yes, people need, if there are changes, people need to know about changes, no matter what the changes are, and to call their attention to the fact that we will be on, ʻŌlelo Channel 54 or whatever it turns out to be. We'll make sure to promote it that way.
I see. Okay. So that's all for ʻŌlelo for me. So the next report is going to go into a conventional broadcast, whatever you're going to be buying, the media partners.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, mahalo. Thank you. Anything else, trustees? All right, so we're gonna move on to our last presentation, number 7. Here we go.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Mahalo. The final presentation leading up to lunch will be I was asked to provide an update on the market survey that is in the budget. So if we can go to that. It's officially known as a Communications and Engagement Strategy Project, the planning portion of it. This is a 2 fiscal year kind of a project that's a combination of both research and evaluation team as well as the comms team. So do we have that slide? That presentation? Yes, no? Oh, okay. Yes, I just don't have it here on my screen. But I can read over my shoulder. Okay, so this, the overview is from the proviso language in the budget that says the Research and Evaluation Division will execute and oversee a market research study on behalf of and in coordination with the Communications Division. The study will assess public awareness, perceptions, and understanding of OHA's mission, programs, and initiatives. Participants will include both Native Hawaiian and non-Native Hawaiian residents of Hawaii, and the research shall include both quantitative polling and qualitative methods, such as focus groups and interviews. Next slide. The findings of this research will help OHA identify key messaging themes, target audiences, and opportunities to strengthen trust, transparency, and connection with beneficiaries and the public. Information gathered shall be used to inform and develop a culturally grounded, data-driven communications and engagement strategy. There's $100,000 in the budget for this this half of the strategy and plan that we're going to put together. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So last month, Carla from R&E and Keith and members of the communications team held a preliminary scoping meeting. That was completed, and a kind of a draft scope of work document was drafted. Research and evaluation has now been working with procurement to determine the process for soliciting a vendor to conduct the research. In this quarter, the bid solicitation and evaluation and contract award will be done. So the scope of work has been completed. The R&E team has met with procurement. There will be an RFP process. We'll issue that RFP here in the next few weeks. The scoping document is completed. I think once an RFP is issued, it needs to be up for like 32 days, and then there'll be a few months for contractors, potential contractors to submit their proposals. They'll be evaluated. Comms will be part of the evaluation team with the R&E team, and then we'll select a vendor to conduct the research. And this will all be completed by the end of by the end of this fiscal year, in time for the findings to be incorporated into the next step, which begins July 1 of 2026, to come up with the communications plan and strategies based on the data collected during this part. One more slide. Thank you. This research will help the OHA communications team and ultimately the organization's leadership in understanding current perceptions of OHA and awareness of its mission and activities among its beneficiaries, lawmakers, and the broader Hawaii community. These findings will be used to guide OHA in future communication efforts in FY27. So our comms team was involved in this part of the project a little bit here in August and September. R&E is kind of running with the ball right now with procurement, and we'll have that underway shortly.
Trustees, any questions? Trustee Galatario?
Bill, what's the budget for this one? I just saw 100,000.
I think $100,000.
Is that enough?
Yeah. Is that enough?
Is that enough to cover what we want to cover? I mean, 100,000 is not going to take you too far in this market.
There may be some negotiations needed,
Yeah.
from what Carla tells me, that it's a little bit on the low side, but I think for $100,000, you can get,
A starter kit.
yeah.
Okay.
You can put together some focus groups, come up with surveys and the like.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we anticipate when will the actual campaign begin?
So as I say, once the RFP is issued, and I'm not sure exactly when that will be, that has to be posted for a month, for 32 days. And then probably a 4-month time to take in and evaluate and award the contract and conduct the research. So this will spill over into the early part of next year when we do the survey itself and get back the findings.
Will this begin rather before the session ends?
Will this begin before the session ends?
Which is
Yes,
May
Yes.
next year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just want a lot of presence out there because it's election year too.
Understand.
And we want the electeds to know that we're here.
Yes.
Okay. Mahalo.
Mahalo, trustee.
Anyone else? Trustee Kahele?
Thanks. Well, just to add to Trustee Galatero's point, we had asked for a higher number for this when the budget was brought before the board on June
Right.
30th. It was amended to reprioritize some funds to other programs, but that doesn't preclude this board from, you came back to us with
A need.
that we could supplement those funds. One of the things that, and this was brought up in a previous board meeting, and maybe for the BNF chair to look at, is when we had passed the budget on the 30th of June, as you are well aware, personnel and costs are at least 25% or so of our budget. The fringe was calculated at, I think, like 64%. But about 2 weeks later, the budget and finance director issued a memo lowering that fringe to 58%. So just recalculating the fringe, and I know Corey was here, he's not sitting here now, but if we recalculated that fringe, that would probably instantly be a net increase to our budget of maybe even $500,000. And that money is there. So one of the things is we should find out how much, because if you remember, our budget was passed like for FY26 right on the margins practically. Well, there is a surplus in there of maybe $500,000 because of the fringe adjustment. And that resources, we should know where it's going. And we could potentially reprioritize some money back to what the original allotment was to achieve the desired outcomes that we had originally intended to achieve.
Yes.
So that's, I think that's a task, that's a do out for the administration to, and maybe, I don't think Grace is here, but our budget chief can give us a recalculation on what that is, and then come back to you, Chair, with some suggestions on, in addition to other programs that maybe were left out of the budget or had their numbers reduced. We could plus those things up.
I'm sure Carla will be very happy to hear that. And, you know, it's her Paya that's running with this now, as I say, so, that will be good news for her. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks, Trustee Pelletier.
Mahalo. Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, go ahead, Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. I'm thinking our OHA hosted meetings, events, gatherings, that would be another opportunity, whether it's on an iPad or paper form, to have that general survey in terms of what their mana'o is and be able to gather that data if the QR code is.
Yeah. Mahalo.
Kai?
Nope.
Oh, I just saw your,
Yeah. We're done.
Trustee Akina.
Bill, I'm really glad we're doing this survey. Are you going to use as background or baseline information previous surveys like SMS research did in 2015 to determine OHA's perceptions by the Hawaiian community and other groups?
I wasn't here in 2015. I'm kind of vaguely familiar with the SMS research just because I keep up with the news, but that would, I'm sure Carla, being as good as she is at what she does, will have some sort of comparison and a basis for where we go. I know there'll be a discussion with the selected vendor before they go out in the field about what it is, you know, specifically that we're looking for. And I think some of the responses we want are not only from beneficiaries, because we have, you know, there are certain perceptions of OHA among members of the public, among state lawmakers, you know, others. There are several constituencies that I think we want to hear from in forming this, you know, baseline of what the perception of our office is. Yeah. But good point. Thank you, Trustee.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if it makes sense at some point to with the surveys to then be able to have that data on hand to further be in communication with whomever is taking the survey if they're open to it, and that be another opportunity for us to ask if they're registered to our Native Hawaiian Registry program, if they're open to it, and then that be that ongoing line of communication, and perhaps through time, whether it be more positive or not as positive, they have a better understanding as to what we're working on and why we exist.
Yes.
And that will help mitigate some of the wonderings there.
Yeah. Mahalo.
Anything else? All right, trustees, thank you so much, Bill, for
Mahalo,
that.
Trustee
And
Shea.
a big mahalo too. There is Grace. Hi, Grace. So we have Grace here. Aloha and thank you for coming.
Yes, I was actually watching it online, trying to, to work as well as, update on this. But thank you so much for Chair for giving a shout out to me. Yes, that's right, there is. So I thought I'd just come in and just show my face, okay? So the fringe was 64.25, and then that was the projection that I used. And like I said, shortly afterwards, we did receive a memo that for the state of Hawaii, it got reduced to 59%, and there is about a $500,000, $500,000 surplus that was not yet budgeted. But like I said, administration is looking for direction how to utilize that, and as well as we are going to come back and give an update on where we are. The first update that I will have will be the end of the first quarter, and the end of the first quarter will be September 30th. So a full report will be shortly afterwards. Okay.
For popping in. Thanks. Anything else, trustees? Otherwise, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn. So be it. And roll call, please.
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
trustee Akina,
Aye.
trustee Galutaria,
Aye.
trustee Kahele, trustee Souza.
Aye.
Trustee Wahe, Vice Chair Wahe,
Yes.
and Chair Lapa.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
And thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.